Hello, I'm Katie Tenate. I am a student at Saugus High School, and I am involved in many different organizations, and I love to talk about mental health.
My name is Arielle Estoria. I am a poet, a speaker, and author, and I am a long ways away from high school, but I still feel that young. And I am an advocate for all things body love and embracing and words.
Okay, so today we're going to, have a little bit of a heavier conversation about anxiety, mental health, all of those not so fun but very important topics. But to kind of start off, I think we're going to start off with just a little bit of an icebreaker question I love asking my friends because it makes them stop and think for a second, is do you think, assuming that ghosts would be real, do you think that ghost cats would still be able to purr?
Ghost cats would still be able to purr. I think yes, but obviously it's still a ghost. So there's one of two options. Either it'll be like a boo kind of purr, or it'll just be like a purr but like super long and drawn out and kind of freaky because it's a ghost. So okay. I feel like it could go one of two ways. That's a fun question. I love that.
Those are just some of the thoughts that go through my brain during the day.
Yeah, honestly, I support that. I support that thought.
Well, thank you. I love the insightful answer. I think that's one of my favorite answers to that question I've ever gotten. Now to jump into something a little bit more not so fun, is something that I love thinking about, or not necessarily love, but I think that it's kind of important in processing anxiety, is kind of figuring out what you think it would look like if it was a person in the room with you. Like, what do you think that they would kind of say and feel like with you, like the energy that they would bring?
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I love personifying things, especially within writing. I think it really helps to personify things because one of two, it allows you to have this face-to-face kind of moment with it. And two, it also kind of diminishes the power of that thing when you personify it, right? Because it feels less daunting and above you. So the moment you said that, like I'm a feeler through and through. So I can walk into a room and kind of feel and navigate what's happening. So if I'm walking into a room and this anxiety is a person, my heart is instantly going to be like, it's just heavy, and then of course, like my oldest child maternal self will kind of like want to go over and just, I'm not a very surface level person. So I'm quick to be like, how are you? Like, how is your soul right now? And so to have that conversation, with anxiety, because I think it would be a very subtle thing, that interaction would be very subtle. I don't think all the time anxiety is this thing that yells or blares. It's just like this subtle little nuance, this subtle little thing that kind of just sits and nags on our hearts and on our souls. And to be able to have a conversation with anxiety, I talk to myself all the time, so if I am anxious or if I do notice myself a little all over the place, I'm like, Ari, like what's happening? Like, are we okay? Why aren't we okay? What's going on with that? And having that conversation with anxiety, just to imagine it being trying to be standoffish, and yet very present, like in the room, like its existence very present in the room. And so I think my gut reaction would want to be to go and talk to them and just kind of check in with it, as we should do, I think, with ourselves.
Yeah, I think that was a really great answer. I really liked how at the beginning you were saying how it's like it feels less scary when you can kind of imagine it as kind of almost like a person that you may have like an issue with and you need to go talk to them and figure it out, or a person who's struggling. I think that that's a really good way to approach it, because anxiety as a term can feel so like broad and scary.
Yeah.
But when you kind of tone it down to something more personal, feels a little bit
Mm,
less scary and more manageable. So I think that's a really good
mm,
way to kind of approach it, is kind of as going and having a talk with your, anxiety as a person.
right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah,
so kind
absolutely.
of on that similar note, how would you say you kind of experience anxiety? Obviously, you said that it's more sometimes of like a daunting small energy within you, but how would you
Mhm.
say, as you, like, you go throughout your day-to-day life, how would you say you experience it?
Yeah, my own personal experience with anxiety. My anxiety is a doer, and it causes me to be a doer. So I know I'm wired to that extent when I'm like feeling like I have to run all these errands, go to like all these different stores, and then I crash by the end of it, and I'm like, why did I just spend that whole day just going, going, going? And usually it's because it's avoidant. Usually it's because I need to sit with something and my anxiety won't let me. So it's just a matter of like, let's just go, let's just do, let's just go, let's just do constantly. So I am continuously out of space of trying to not force, but to ease myself into stillness and to slower days and slower mornings and slower evenings, so that I won't be captive, to the thing that tries to keep me busy. And other times it'll show up in like actual like panic attacks. Like I have asthma, so I notice if I like overwhelm myself too much, then I'll start having trouble breathing. And again, it's a talking to myself, so I'm very much so like, all right, I talk to myself a lot. I'm just like, all right, you have to breathe right now. Like my mind is trying to be all rational and like the calm therapist, and other part of my body, it's like freaking out. And so just that reminder of like, you have to breathe right now. And then the practice of yoga, breathing in through your nose and out through your nose is a great way of breathing, because it sends signals to your brain that you're safe and you're in control. So I constantly come back to that inhale and that exhale through my nose, of just like sending those signals through all of me. I think what happens within anxiety for me specifically is this disconnect of my mind to my body, to my heart, and to my soul. And I think breathing is a really, really beautiful exercise that helps us connect all of us back to each other.
Yeah, I get very similar where I'll get really busy and kind of, go, 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 and then all of a sudden at the end of the day, it's like, oh wait, what did I do all day? Kind of like your brain just gets
Yeah.
mushed, and you're like, you got to take a second to be with yourself. And
Mm,
breathing definitely helps whenever I'm kind of like trying to figure it out. Just taking that moment to stop and breathe is so important.
mhm,
So I think that that's really good, and I'm really glad that you have that kind of set up system with yourself, that you can kind of recognize it and,
mhm.
understand your anxiety, and know how to get yourself a little bit more back on track.
Yeah.
So when that kind of those moments happen where your anxiety kind of builds up, has there ever been a time or a moment or some kind of event that happened that may have caused it to you like that may have caused your anxiety to make you kind of act out of alignment, or act out of
Mm.
sorts or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's, constant causes. I don't think we're just naturally anxiety wired people. There are reasons those things happen. And I know for me, within this last year or so, a lot of my own anxiety was coming from, my family. For a moment, I was getting married. I'm the first in my family to get married, and there was a lot of disarray. So I noticed a lot of my anxiety that I was carrying was actually not mine to begin with. And that was something that really helped me sort through. Like, first of all, this is not mine. It took me a while to realize that it wasn't mine, but like I wasn't sleeping. I was like up all night. I just like I was sobbing myself to sleep, and just so ridden with fear, which is ultimately what anxiety is. It's just this fear that sits in the core of us. And I had to realize what I was allowing to sit in my core was not mine, to hold and to operate out of, which is why I felt so misaligned, because it wasn't mine. And so that first realization was being able to acknowledge that it wasn't mine, and then releasing what wasn't me, being willing and able to let it go. Like, okay, this, you can't hold this anymore. First of all, this is not yours to hold. So a lot of it was that for me, and ultimately being tied to wanting to be, acceptable and pleasing. I'm almost 30 years old, and that still doesn't change. You still want your parents' approval. That doesn't shift necessarily. And so wanting to be seen in the good light, wanting to have the applause. We may say we don't care, we don't really need it, but there's parts of us that still really desire it, and for me, I had lived a lot of life being the example child, being the good girl, and that kind of broke, and my anxiety triggered because I wasn't living up to the expectations of others. Again, something not mine to release. So that was a lot of the process, was acknowledging this is not my fear. This is actually my parents' fear, for their oldest child getting married and them not being able to do anything about it. But this is not mine. And so really coming to terms with acknowledging, is this mine to hold or isn't? And if it is, then to do that work accordingly.
So that kind of like buildup of obviously other people's anxiety kind of manifesting inside of you and your own, did that kind of ever make you act so like someone who wasn't yourself, whether it be like a moment or a time
Mhm.
period where you felt like you just weren't you, and obviously you are the oldest child, you want to set the good example for your siblings, and I'm sure that that trickles
Yeah.
into your other side, like your other life as well, not just in within like your family. But has that kind of
Mhm.
anxiety and stress that builds up, has that ever made you act like someone who you just like didn't recognize?
Yeah. I mean, I'm really just now coming out of that space where I can look at myself in the mirror again and be like, there she is, because I had lost her for a little bit there, and a lot of it was because of the loud minority. That's the voices that are trying to convince you to be everything else except for who you already are and who you know yourself to be. And I have always been a person who, I'm like very strong in my decisions. Yet when I'm not the most decisive person, I'm a very decisive person. And so I lived, 27 years of 28 years of my life at that point, knowing the decisions I'm making. I'm going to college, I'm studying this, I'm leaving, my hometown, I'm gonna stay in LA, I'm going to make it as an artist. I was very clear in my directions until I wasn't. And it wasn't like me to not be clear, and I was clear, until it was maybe I was changing and I wasn't as clear as I thought I was according to my parents. And I was like, no, I am clear. But then it became like, maybe I'm not, maybe I don't know, maybe, and it became all these maybes. And I was searching to other people like, can you tell me the answer? And it was kind of like, where did that woman go? The one who knew the strength of her yes, and the decision of her steps, and I had to come back to her, and a lot of that was about trusting my own decisions and trusting that I knew best for myself in this next season, and not listening to the voices that told me otherwise. But I didn't know who I was for a good chunk of a year. And I told my counselor once, I was like, I feel like I'm watching someone in my body live my life, but it's not me. And a lot of it has just been trying to return myself back to myself, and trusting my decisions as a result.
Yeah, it can be a very scary moment when you look in the mirror and you kind of like don't recognize yourself, and you look back at your past actions and you're kind of like, that was me. Like whether
Mhm.
it be after like a period of change or something that made you act a certain way, it's definitely a kind of a scary moment. And obviously recognizing your stress and the sources of it definitely sounded like it helped you there, and kind of, asking the questions to yourself. But would you say there's anything else that kind of helped you find yourself again and kind of alleviate that like overwhelming negative feeling that you just aren't doing something correct, that something's just wrong there?
Yeah. I mean, mentors were huge for me. Like, I wasn't like, I can paddle myself back to shore of sanity. Like, that wasn't it at all. Like, I feel like I had to be paddled back to the shore of myself, if you will. Like, I did meet with people, and I did meet with people who knew me, and mentors who loved me, and them talking me down, and then reminding me, you're not crazy. You can trust yourself. You can trust these decisions you're making, and hearing that resounding from the opposite end of what I was constantly hearing really helped. So mentors were very crucial. I've had mentors throughout my life, for forever, and I think in every season they're super necessary. So mentors were huge. My husband was a great help too, to just kind of like level me out, and then again, the inner work that you have to do on your own. But I think, if anything, the life vest, if you will, were the people around me who did see me and know me, and desired the best for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really amazing. It's definitely, I know for me, my own personal help has been just kind of being surrounded by positive people, which, especially going back to that beginning of kind of that, I think, imagining anxiety as a person, their voice kind of starts to get drowned out when you're surrounded by people who are just giving you back positivity and, helping you find who you are again, and just kind of giving you that fun, easygoing times where you don't have to worry about things, and then you can kind of tune other people out. So obviously you are an amazing author, poet. I know that you also do, I believe, spoken word pieces as well. And how would you say that those have helped your mental health and just kind of reduce your anxiety and help you kind of feel grounded back on earth?
Yeah. I say all the time that writing is therapy, and it is. I used to be a teaching artist, and I would work with teens, and specifically teens who were incarcerated, and it was so beautiful to get them to write, like, if my heart was a planet, what would you find on it? And the things they would show you, just in that prompt alone, of just like where they felt in terms of darkness and heaviness, and and anxiety and depression, like we're talking about, and their own mental health coming through this poem, that they were writing. My background is psychology, so I know that there's very much so an overlaying. My desire was always to find the art and the therapy, and to find a middle ground, which is cool because I unintentionally am doing that with my life. But I think writing is extremely therapeutic, and for me, I'm an internal and a verbal processor, so I can talk about it all I wanted to people. But I guess another tool from your last question was writing. My next book is all about that season of my life and having to process through it and write through it. And so I don't think I ever fully receive a resolve with something unless I also write it down. And then once I write it down, I'm like, okay, I released it. It's not over. It's not done. There's always growing and learning that we have as people. But for the most part, there is a chapter closed in that extent. And so I think everyone should write. Like, just journal paging, is a practice that I think we all could benefit from. And I think it's a great tool, and it's really beautiful to see the things that come up from writing. And that could be both beneficial things and things you're like, I did not want to see that, but it's still necessary for us to work through. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And it's really nice that you're able to kind of take what helps keep you mentally okay as kind of your whole lifetime career. That one prompt that you had said just sounds so amazing, even sitting here is like, what would be on my planet,
You should do that one after this.
It's definitely something that just kind of makes you think. And I think a lot of times, especially teens like myself, kind of can look at, all of these like famous writing and stuff like that, and don't view writing as something that they can easily just go and do, when it's like they can just take a pen and paper and just kind of, even not even just teens, but everyone beyond that, when you're in your adulthood as well, just kind of don't like underestimate the power of just kind of taking it and writing it down, because I know whenever I've started to write, it just kind of all keeps going. And then you kind of realize some things about yourself that you were like, oh wait, that was in my brain. I didn't
Yes.
didn't process that one yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, especially within like where in school we view kind of writing as like a task that has to be done.
Right.
But luckily, I know for me at least, I was able to join a literary magazine club in like class in my school, and seeing the amazing writing that goes on by other students and being kind of surrounded by that creative process has helped me so much in realizing like just how important that kind of, you know, physical process of taking your own mind and figuring out what it's trying to say to you.
Yes,
I think,
absolutely.
yeah, I think other than that, if there's anything else that, you know, you want to add about kind of advice or tips about mental health, and kind of specifically dealing with that anxiety and, you know, maybe talking to your person. But unless you believe that we've covered it all, I think that that's all for today,
Yeah.
unless there's anything else.
No, I think you said it spot on. A lot of it being find your safe people is really important, and also just to dive a little bit more into the writing aspect. Journal pages are a great way to start. There's a book called The Artist's Way, and the author talks about this thing called morning pages. So starting your day, she does 3 pages of stream of conscious, which means just get up, write. Like, I had a weird dream, there were aliens, and then there's this cat that was like kind of purring, like you just start writing things, right? And it's not always coherent, but there's something that happens when we do this brain dumping, you know. And when I was doing them consistently, I pulled some of my favorite pieces now out of them. And so that is a practice that I do. And when I do the exercise myself for other people during workshops, I have them do just like 1 page, but you always find yourself wanting to do more, like you were talking about. So maybe that could be just a practice of like journal out that anxiety, like write it down. And it doesn't have to be words. Like, I've had teens who just like straight up scribbled, and I'm like, cool, how'd that feel? You know, like, because we needed to do that, you know. And so morning pages or stream of conscious pages are a great way to start. That way it's not like I have to create something profound and incredible here. It's like, no, there's brain dumping that needs to happen, and I'm gonna do that. So yeah, that was just the lesson, I think I would say.
Yeah, that sounds really nice, especially just sometimes getting that out of your brain and just kind of letting it all go, especially scribbles.
Oh yeah, yes,
It's
definitely
very
scribbles.
relaxing.
Yes, put some music on, you know, let it be a moment. Absolutely. Yeah.
So good, you two. I love it. I want to put music on and scribble presently. I want to, first of all, I want to celebrate I think during our interview, I'm pretty sure there was a ghost cat in my room. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure. Second of all, Katie, I want to know, to close things out today, how is your soul?
I would say my soul is fairly filled and happy. You know, it's nice. I'm on Thanksgiving break right now, actually, so it's very low stress. You know, just doing college apps and just kind of talking to friends virtually. You know, being safe and hanging out with my family, because we're all at home all of the time. So it's really nice to be able to just like walk into my brother's room and just be like, hey, what's up? So I'd say my soul is doing fairly good.
I love it. Arielle, do you have, as you were talking with Katie, I know you write about so many different things, but did anything come to mind as something that you've like, even like a line from a piece you wrote, even a line from a friend's piece of work, even a word to come out of today with?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I just kind of know that in this space, so many of us are carrying, you know, what he is talking about, this anxiety and just this heaviness. And so I think this breathe and release just kept being a reminder for me throughout this whole time. It's just this constant reminder to breathe, to release, and know that you have nowhere else to be except for home in yourself. It's kind of where I came back to. And so just hoping that is like a gentle reminder. It's one to myself. So I've been going since like 9 this morning, so this was like there's nowhere to be but right here home with yourself. So